Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a pretty shocking crime out of Wisconsin we need to talk about today.
Yeah, it's definitely caught a lot of attention. A 17-year-old accused of murdering his own parents.
Exactly. But here's where it gets, frankly, just deeply unsettling for anyone listening. The alleged motive.
Right. It wasn't what you might initially expect, like uh, robbery or some kind of family dispute.
No. According to federal investigators, it was allegedly to finance a plan to assassinate former President Donald Trump.
And not just that, but also to overthrow the entire U.S. government.
Yeah.
It's quite something to process, isn't it?
It really is. And these charges, they were filed just last month, right, in Waukesha County?
That's correct. But the federal angle, specifically outlining this assassination plot, maybe even using a weapon of mass destruction, that's emerged more recently.
And it casts a really stark, very troubling light on the whole situation for our listeners.
Absolutely. Which is why, for this deep dive, we've pulled together a range of sources. We want to give you the clearest picture possible.
So we're looking at news reports from places like Punjab Kesari, the Indian Express, CBS News, the Daily Beast, Sky News, kind of getting different angles.
And we've also got some insights from an expert piece on crime reporting itself, sort of how to approach these stories ethically.
Right, and even a Reddit discussion that touches on, well, the broader context of extremist ideologies. Not directly about this case, but the background.
Yeah, the idea is to really get to the core here. Understand the crime, the charges, but also the why, the alleged motive, the ideology behind it.
So the mission for you listening is to get those key details, see what stands out, and maybe start thinking about what it all signifies. Let's begin with the basics. The alleged crime, the initial charges.
Okay, so at the center is Nikita Casap. He's 17, from Wisconsin.
And he's accused of killing his mother, Tatiana Casap, 35, and his stepfather, Donald Mayer, who's 51.
Tragically, yes. Their bodies were found in their home back on February 28th.
And the state charges are already pretty severe, right?
Oh, definitely. He's facing 9 felony charges in Wisconsin. That includes 2 counts of first-degree murder and also 2 counts of hiding a corpse.
Hiding a corpse, that just paints a grim picture.
It really does. And to understand the timeline, he was actually arrested quite a distance away.
Where was that?
In Kansas. He was driving Mr. Mayer's car, which, suggests he was trying to flee.
Makes sense. And he's being held now.
Yes, in Waukesha County Jail. The bond is set at $1 million.
Wow. $1 million. That certainly shows how seriously the state views this.
Absolutely. But then, like we mentioned, the federal charges were unsealed.
And that's where this whole thing just expands dramatically.
Exactly. Federal investigators have added charges for presidential assassination, conspiracy.
And that chilling phrase, use of a weapon of mass destruction.
Right. Which, in legal terms often refers to devices meant for widespread harm.
Yeah.
Not necessarily nuclear, but still.
Yeah.
Indicating the potential scale they believe he was planning.
It really elevates the level of concern here. Okay, so those are the basic facts, the charges. Let's get into the alleged motive and this supposed plan. This is where it gets particularly disturbing.
It is. The FBI warrant is pretty explicit. It states the killings were allegedly done to, quote, finance his plan.
Finance the Trump assassination and government overthrow plan?
Yes. The idea seemingly being to get financial means and autonomy to carry it out.
And this wasn't just like a fleeting thought. They found evidence.
Apparently so. Investigators reportedly found written documents, and text messages too, outlining these plans in some detail.
Which suggests, some level of premeditation, that he'd been thinking about this, developing it.
That seems to be the implication, and it gets worse. Reports mention a 3-page manifesto.
A manifesto? What did it say?
Well, allegedly, it was deeply anti-Semitic. It praised Adolf Hitler, and it detailed his reasons, his motivations for wanting to kill Trump.
Praising Hitler. It's just hard to fathom. And it didn't start with Trump.
According to the summaries we have, no. It reportedly mentioned getting rid of the president and perhaps the vice president.
To cause chaos, government collapse.
That seems to be the idea.
Yeah.
And connected to this horrific ideology of wanting to, quote, save the white race.
Ugh. It's deeply disturbing stuff. This ideology seems central.
It does. And the plan wasn't just talk, allegedly. There were concrete steps.
Like what?
He allegedly paid for, or at least partly paid for, a drone and explosives.
With the intent to use them as a weapon of mass destruction. That's what the charge relates to.
That appears to be the connection, yes.
Yeah.
It really takes the alleged plot to a different level of potential danger.
It's terrifying to think he might have been acquiring the means for an attack. And was he doing this alone?
Investigators don't necessarily think so. They've indicated he was reportedly in contact with other people about this plan.
Other people who did they know what he was planning?
That's a huge question, right? It suggests maybe a network, even a small one. People who are aware, maybe even involved. That's something investigators will surely be digging into.
So we've got this picture of a teenager allegedly driven by this hateful ideology, taking steps toward potentially catastrophic violence. Let's focus a bit more on that ideology now.
Right. The sources we've seen strongly suggest a clear extremist ideology. Racist, anti-Semitic, neo-Nazi, apparently a direct motivation.
How do they know that? What's the evidence?
Well, materials found on his phone, things related to a specific neo-Nazi group called the Order of Nine Angles.
Never heard of them.
They're a known, pretty obscure but extreme group.
Yeah.
And also, explicit praise for Adolf Hitler was found on the phone.
And you mentioned anti-Semitic ratings earlier, too.
Yes, those were reportedly present as well. It paints a picture of someone deeply immersed in this kind of hate.
It's just chilling. How does someone so young get so deep into that?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? These ideologies, they often provide this twisted justification for violence, a warped view of the world.
A framework to rationalize the unthinkable.
Precisely. Admiring Hitler, associating with neo-Nazi groups. These are unfortunately classic signs.
Okay, so the ideology is clear, but there were also these connections, right, and escape plans. That adds another layer.
Yes, another really complex layer. The allegations say he was in contact with someone who speaks Russian.
Using what? How did they talk?
Through the Telegram app, the messaging application. This introduces an international element.
And what were they talking about?
Well, allegedly they discussed a plan for Casap to flee, to go to Ukraine.
Ukraine. That seems odd, given the conflict there. Why Ukraine?
It's a very good question. And the messages between Casap and this Russian speaker, whose phone number, interestingly, is Ukrainian, supposedly discussed overthrowing the U.S. government.
And assassinating Trump. They talked about that, too.
Reportedly, yes. Which suggests, maybe some shared ideology or at least a shared interest in these extreme goals.
Was there any corroboration for this? Did anyone else know?
Well, according to one report, a classmate told authorities that Casap had mentioned being in touch with a male in Russia via Telegram.
And that they were planning these specific things, the overthrow, the assassination.
That's what the classmate reportedly said Casap told them. So it wasn't just in the manifesto, he was allegedly talking about it.
Wow. And did the manifesto mention Ukraine?
It did, apparently.
Yeah.
Included ideas about how he would actually live there, suggesting it wasn't just a throwaway idea. He'd given it some thought.
So many unanswered questions there. Was this contact real, involved, just someone he talked to?
Exactly. Investigators have a lot to unravel regarding these connections. Okay, let's pivot to the legal side. Where do things stand now?
Right, the court process. What's happened recently?
His last court appearance was April 9th, and he was bound over for trial on those state charges.
Bound over means? Basically, the judge thinks there's enough evidence to proceed.
Essentially, yes. Enough probable cause for the state case with the murders, hiding the corpse to go to a full trial.
And there's another key date coming up.
There is, May 7th. That's scheduled for his arraignment.
On all the charges, state and federal.
That's the plan. He'll be formally presented with all the charges and will likely enter a plea guilty, not guilty.
And we absolutely have to remember these are all allegations at this point.
Crucial point, yes. He has legal representation, a public defender. And they've already made moves.
Like what?
Trying to get some state charges dismissed, arguing the prosecution hasn't laid out its case in enough detail yet.
So we can expect a legal fight here?
Undoubtedly. This will be complex, likely lengthy. Now, let's broaden the view slightly. One of our sources was that Reddit discussion.
Right, the one touching on extremist ideologies in different contexts.
Yes. And it's important for listeners to understand why we mention it. It's not to draw a direct line or compare this specific case to others discussed there.
No, definitely not. It's more about acknowledging that these kinds of extreme ideologies, sadly, exist in various forms around the world.
Exactly. That discussion, while focused elsewhere, just serves as a reminder that extremist motivations aren't unique to one group or belief system. They pop up in different ways, different places.
So we're not making equivalencies, just providing that wider context that the alleged motivations here, while extreme, are part of a larger, unfortunate global pattern.
Precisely. It helps understand that these disturbing ideas, sadly, find purchase in various contexts and can lead to violence. It's part of a bigger picture.
Okay. So let's try to bring this deep dive together for everyone listening. We've looked at some incredibly disturbing elements.
We really have. The alleged parricide killing his parents, the apparent extremist motivation, that racist anti-Semitic core.
Then the alleged plot itself, assassinating a former president, overthrowing the government, using a WMD.
And these concerning international connections that are still being investigated. Ukraine, the Russian speaker.
It's quite a convergence of, well, chilling factors, and the legal process is just starting, really.
Very much so. Many details are still unclear, but the picture emerging is undeniably unsettling.
It's a situation that's still developing. Court dates, investigations ongoing. We'll likely learn more as things move forward.
Which leads to, I think, a really significant question for people to think about.
What's that?
What does it really signify when such extreme ideologies allegedly motivate such violent actions, right, within a community? What are the factors, the pathways that might lead someone to that point of radicalization?
That's a heavy question, and uncomfortable, but important given what we've discussed. It pushes us beyond just the shock of the crime.
Yeah, to think about the deeper currents, maybe societal factors that contribute. We don't have easy answers, of course.
No, we don't. But staying informed, looking carefully at different sources, trying to understand these complex events, that's crucial.
And that really is the goal of the deep dive, isn't it? To equip you, the listener, with a thorough, concise understanding by examining the information carefully.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive today.